So here we go to the beautiful painting by Vincent van Gogh entitled The Sower, and the last generation crying out to the world, while the sower speaks ever so gently. Once again, soup was thrown at a Van Gogh painting in Rome on the agenda of the climate change protests. And fortunately, just like the previous instance, I think last week, the painting was behind glass, so it was not affected. Soup thrown at the Van Gogh painting in Rome, a climate change protest by a group of women calling themselves Ultima Generazione, the last generation. The Italian environmental protesters had thrown pea soup over a Vincent van Gogh painting on display in Rome on Friday before gluing themselves to the wall of the gallery. So we've seen this MO many times. Some may be spontaneous, but we know that there is orchestration behind this and financing, funding from the people behind the New World Order as well. So I believe these women and young men as well of what they call the last generation, they understand where we are in time, that we are facing unprecedented changes. But of course, these changes are misdiagnosed and they are hung under the umbrella of the need for climate change, and then people are lured toward the UN-sponsored sustainability goals, and these protesters are either inspired or perhaps even financed to further this alarmism. But that's not the reason why I highlighted this news item, because I think the Lord drew my attention to the original. Because as I started writing this blog, I think now 2 years ago, I did so with a painting by Vincent van Gogh, the almond blossoms which he had painted for the birth of his nephew. So the birth of the season is marked in the Bible by the blossoming of the almond tree. And it's just one of the most beautiful paintings I have ever seen. I have recently been able to see it in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam for the first time, because it had been abroad prior. So I have been following Van Gogh's work for a very long time. He was a devout believer in the Lord. And if you read his letters, and don't go by the official narrative that he committed suicide, because there is most likely a very different explanation to how his life came to an end. But he loved the Lord, and he wanted nothing more than to be a minister for the Lord, but he was excommunicated. There was a lot of tension within his family. He was excommunicated by the religiously driven spirit in the Dutch church at the time. And that's when he went to France and started painting. And I've covered his work, because there's a lot of prophetic undertones in his work, in addition to him glorifying the Lord and the scriptures. And it is the same with this particular painting, because if you go to the museum description of this painting, it reads that the striking aspect of this painting is that behind the sower who sows the plowed land with a broad arm gesture, like a firm gesture, the ripe corn can still be seen. With this, Van Gogh refers to the cycle of nature and life. The theme of the sower also has a religious aspect for him. The sower on the land represents the sower of God's word. And to me, this speaks of a change of season. And why was this so? Why did this speak so loudly to me? Earlier today, I received a message from one of our brothers, Brother Christopher. He left a message for me saying that the Lord had given him 2 words. If I remember correctly, that was colors, pastel, in that order. And he was like, I'm very specific as to the order of these words, which is not, of course, proper in English, nor is it in Dutch. And as he watched the series I did yesterday of Abraham standing before the Lord, that first image was also painted in pastel. So he saw a confirmation in that. And I agreed, and I just left it at that. And because if I don't have any inkling in my mind or my heart, I just leave it, and the Lord will show me later. As I was on the verge of actually uploading the previous video I did, I remembered this news clip that I had seen it, but I hadn't really read into it nor looked at the painting. And I was like, let me do that before publishing. So I opened this painting and I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. This is colors pastel. And I started reading into the painting, and then it really came to life, in addition to the word order, because in French, the order is proper. It would be couleur pastel in French. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the Lord is speaking. So I'm not going to claim that I know what this painting means prophetically, but I'm just going to share what it means to me. In this ocean of like blues and golds, we see the standing corn at the end, meaning there is still some corn standing, as in the harvest is ripe now. But then we see the sower announcing the new season. He is planting for the coming harvest. And isn't that where we are in time exactly? So we are in the season of the winter rains, which will soften the soil in order for the seed to actually take hold and grow into a new crop. But if you look very carefully, you also see a couple of crows, just like in the Bible, that some of the seeds will not be able to take hold for different reasons, right? It could be a rocky ground or a hard soil or seeds being stolen. But for me, the most profound meaning of this painting is the glorious sun, right? All the attention in the painting is drawn toward the sun. And I believe this is a setting sun, shining like its golden light over our season, over the earth. And to me, this is the ending of one harvest season and the starting of the new one. So that is where I believe we are in time. And I'm going to include a link to the original painting, because you're actually able to zoom in, and then you're going to be able to see the magnificent texture of this painting and the use of color. It's just beautiful. So if we look at how this painting is reflecting what is in the heavens as we speak, we see that the sun, that's what we talked about yesterday, is actually arriving at the altar of redemption with the 2 witnesses, the beloved and Mercury, the groomsman. So it is like a full circle, right? So as the sun and the 2 witnesses are arriving at the redemption altar, we are called to lay our lives down completely, to live like a living sacrifice, just like he did. The video was just now interrupted by someone coming at the door, and I didn't quite remember where I had been, and then I was prompted to check in the directory of all the letters that Vincent has written over the course of his life, which are many, whether or not he had written about the sower. And he had, in fact. And there was one particular letter where he speaks of having listened to a sermon about Jesus walking through the cornfields with his disciples on a Sabbath, the hand picking of the grain. Remember, we covered that a long time ago as well. And in that same sermon, the parable of the sower was also read out. Vincent speaks about that it made such a deep impression upon him. And that's what I think of when I watch this painting. It's so amazing that the upcoming lunar Sabbath, the total lunar eclipse, the conjunction of the moon and Uranus, just as blue as the blue stripes in the cornfield, happens on a lunar Sabbath. And that is one of the most profound high watch days the coming week. So, to me, the Lord is speaking of one season ending, a new one beginning, but also that he is going to employ us in this harvest. So I hope you are blessed. I certainly was when I looked at this painting and all the beauty that is hidden underneath. And the Lord always shows us things in so many intricate connections and layers. It's just truly, truly amazing. Pray a blessing over your evening, over your weekend, and remember that even if it becomes spiritually, even physically dark outside, we are sheltered and comforted in the Lord. And as that, we go forward in faith and shine his light and sow his seed, the seed of the gospel, the seed of what our Redeemer has done for us on our behalf. We're going to be able to share that good news in that context of darkening, because it's just like stars against the heavenly backdrop. As the night falls, these stars will shine brighter and brighter, and we are equated with those stars. So, much love.